All right, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little bit quiet lately, but today we got two articles. We got a new rules reference guide, and we got the hard sell article. A lot of the hard sell stuff has been spoiled for a few days now. I didn't want to go with the spoiler stuff, but it's there. I'm going to try and do another video later today to deal with the hard sell, but I thought the rules reference guide was going to be more important and more interesting to a lot of people. Now, a lot of what's in here is stuff like the little inserts that you get with ships with new rules, like the contain defense token, was never in the original rules reference guide because it came out later in a later expansion and wave. And I believe it was even in wave 1 with this Star Destroyer. Or if you, I don't know if that was wave 1 or wave 2. I don't know how exactly they quantified it, but it was there, never put into the rules reference guide. It was always an errata or part of a little separate insert, and so you had to carry all these inserts around to keep all of the rules straight. Well, now they're all in one place. That we have a living rules reference guide now that will be updated more organically over time. If a new rule comes up, a new defense token comes, some other new mechanic or new rule, it's going to get added to the rules reference guide. So we're going to have one thing. There's not going to be a separate FAQ. We're not going to have to carry around all of these inserts. One document. So that's all really good. Now, it does make it slightly more difficult to go through the document to see what has actually changed and what's new, because everything in here is highlighted in blue, including stuff like contain that was added because it is now new to the rules reference guide. But we've had contain, nothing changed with contain, it's just being added to the rules reference guide. I went through this pretty closely. I'm going to just skim through most of it. Most of the changes that we've seen are things that we've already learned about. Things like evade. Evade was a big one. Pass token was a big one. We now have salvo in here. But towards the end of the document, we have our card errata. And that'll be a little bit more interesting because I don't think we've talked about a lot of these yet. So let's go through and see what we have. Right, so like I said, I'm going to skip through a lot of this, things like the additional stations. That's nothing new. It's been in the game for a while. Now, chaff tokens do have a minor change. They now are two-sided. There's chaff on one side. Works the same as it did before, but on the other side, it's focus. Now, we didn't know a lot about focus. We had some upgrade cards that referenced focus, but we didn't know if focus had a native effect, some sort of native ability. It's not. It says right here, the reverse side of this token is blue and is referred to as a focus token. And it says in here that it's referenced by other cards. I'm trying to find where I saw that, but I did see that it's going to be where it references focus tokens. So once we get there, that's where that part will be. But it's the same token now, chaff and focus. I don't know how. I can't remember now exactly what upgrade types. I know chaff is for like early warning system, and the focus, I can't remember the upgrade card right now, but maybe it's the same upgrade slot so that you can't have both at the same time. My guess is that's probably the case. You're either going to have chaff or focus. You're not going to be able to do both at the same time. Again, all of this, the new evade effect. So that's exactly what we've been talking about. Evade now lets you reroll natively at close range. And also, right here, when a ship spends an evade token while defending against a ship of a larger size class, it may cancel or reroll one additional attack die as appropriate for the attack's range. If it does, discard the spent token, whether it is readied or exhausted. So I think that clarifies something a few people were wondering, can you only do that if it's green? Well, no, this is saying that it can be red. So if earlier in the turn you had an evade, you spent it to use its native effect, later on something else shoots at you, you have a red token, and you want to spend that and get rid of 2 dice, you can do that. So that's good. Again, like I said, contain and salvo are now also in here, but are not different to what we expect. Now, let's see. Most of this is nothing new. You know, we have the flotilla changes, which was a while ago. There's a whole section on huge ships, which is all of the regular huge ships stuff. The only thing about the huge ships that I will mention is they do not get their own pass tokens. Huge ships don't get their own pass tokens now. The only pass tokens they get are the ones that are the new pass tokens that are given out based on the number of ships in your fleet compared to the number of ships in your opponent's fleets, which we'll talk about in 1 second. But here we have focus tokens. Some effects refer to focus tokens. The player controlling the equipped ship places that token on one of that ship's hull zones to mark that effect. The reverse side of this token is red and is referred to as a chaff token. So it's just a marker. It's marking a specific hull zone for a specific effect. That effect is going to be outlined in whatever upgrade or other card. I suppose potentially an objective could assign the focus token somehow, but it's going to be assigned by an effect, usually an upgrade card. Grav tokens for the interdictor. It's all stuff we've seen. Again, all of the huge stuff. Ignition. Now I did have something in there about line of sight. This is nothing new. You can't trace line of sight through plastic. Or when tracing line of sight, ignore ship's shield dials and the plastic portions of it. That's all been in effect for quite a while. All of the new obstacles, well, not new, all of the obstacles that were added after the core set was released last time. In both cases, it was in the Corellian conflict and rebellion in the Rim. All the stuff about token and obstacle movement, all of that kind of stuff. So you can see here they're showing if you're able to move the obstacle, the squadron doesn't move with it. Okay, so pass tokens. So this is a new rule, and it's what we had heard before. What it is so if I have 4 activations and my opponent has 3 activations, my opponent will get 1 pass token. They can use that at any point in time, but once they use it, it goes away. Now there are a couple of differences here, and let's just go through this one more time, just because this is a new rule that everyone's going to have to get used to. player receives one or more pass tokens at the beginning of the game if their opponent has more ships than they do. When it is a player's turn to activate during the ship phase, that player may spend a pass token to pass their turn instead of activating, and it becomes their opponent's turn to activate a ship. When a pass token is spent, it is discarded. It says Super Star Destroyers, huge ships, don't get pass tokens anymore, other than the ones that they would get through this new rule. Before deploy ships, step of setup, if one player has fewer total ships in their fleet, that player gains a number of pass tokens equal to the difference between their total ships and their opponent's total ships. If the first player has fewer ships, then that player gains one fewer pass tokens. So it's pretty simple. I had heard some rumors about some complexity that was added to this. It doesn't seem that complex to me. Now, a lot of times the first player is going to have smaller activations because they've put in a bid. They may have given up an activation in order to get that bid. So in my example before, if I had 4, my opponent had 3. If my opponent was first player, they get 1, but because they're first player, they reduce it by 1, so there are no pass tokens. No pass tokens in the game. If they were second player and I was first player, now they could, in theory, have a lower bid and bid for second and give that to me, but now I'm gonna, and in that case I would get so I have, sorry, it's not that complex. It would flip. They would be second player. Now they do get a pass token. Okay, because they're second player. So they can give me first player in order to get their pass token. There are cases where people want to be second player. I would say that that's not the usual case. Most people are going to want to be first player if they have a bid. But there have been times in the past where I have played games where somebody has bid for second player, and that's another, now a little added thing that we can add into figuring out pass tokens. Now, so I don't expect people are going to get, at most, people will get 2 or 3 pass tokens in a game. If you have a 2 ship versus, a 6 ship, you can do a 6. I know with hammerheads you can do 7, I think. I can't remember. No, they can do more than that. But it's a silly list. Why would you do it? Most people are going to have 4 or 5 activations in their list. If you have lots of squadrons, which I expect is going to be the case, it'll be even less. It's going to be like 3. So it's not going to be much more, on average, not going to be much more than a 1 to 2 ship difference. And a lot of times that first player is going to be the one with the fewer ships, which is going to then reduce it again. So I don't see lots of pass tokens happening in a game. So I wouldn't worry about having lots of pass tokens. I know that they're giving pass tokens out in the dial pack. Don't buy a dial pack just to get pass tokens. I think that the starters are going to come with pass tokens too. If they still don't get the dial pack just to get pass tokens. You can use other things. You could use, a 6-sided die. Okay, I've got 2 passes. Here's my 2. I use 1, goes to 1. I use the other one, dice goes away. All done. Easy way to deal with passes. I don't think this is going to change the game dramatically. I don't think it's a huge deal. Some people are worried, they're doing all this stuff like evade in order to help small ships, but then pass tokens are going to hurt small ships again. In a sense they do, because they give a little bit of a benefit to somebody that wants to run a low activation big ship fleet. But again, I don't see it as being a huge issue. or a huge change to the mechanics of the game. It is a change, but I don't think it's going to have a huge effect. They do get into the new upgrade cards and the exhaust and ready, applying tokens to cards at the beginning of the game, their costs to refresh, goes through all of that. I think we've gone through that quite a bit. It does talk about the any command icon, which is this one. So that means any command token can refresh it, or they will specify only specific command tokens can refresh. This icon here means that the card it exhausts, but it automatically readies for the next turn. So it just means it's a once per turn effect, and that's it. But you get it every single turn if you want it. It's just new iconography on the cards. Talking about set aside ships and squadrons, this was all added after the initial release, so it's in here. Talking about yaw at speed 0. I think it's funny that they use the Victory in order to show this. I believe the Onager is the only ship that has yaw at speed 0. So at the moment, it very well may have more ships, especially with the more factions. There will be other ships that will be able to do that as well. I just think it's odd that they use the Victory to do that, because the Victory cannot yaw at speed 0. Again, more Onager stuff. Talking about size classes, so they do include huge ships and things here. It does have the change to Intel, but most of the squadron stuff hasn't changed. And now we're talking about upgrade cards. Cards with tokens or dials, so that's what you're going to place on those cards at the beginning of the game to start. And now we have errata. Finally, we have the errata. So we're going to go through these. Again, they've included errated cards from previous erratas. So I'm just using my memory to try and remember which ones are new and which ones have been that way for a while. So bear with me if I miss one. Sorry if I go through one that we already knew about. I'll probably recognize it pretty quick and move on. So Admiral Constantine got a pretty good buff change. Now, at the start of each status phase, you may choose any number of enemy ships at distance 1 to 5 of at least 2 friendly non-flotilla ships, one of which must be medium or large size class. For each chosen ship, you may discard 1 nav token, that's new, from it, or increase or decrease its speed by 1 to a minimum speed of 1. So there's a couple of things here that buffed it. First of all, Constantine used to be medium or larger. It now allows one of those ships to be small. One of the problems with Constantine is it didn't benefit you to take a small ship with Constantine. Now you can take 1 or 2 small ships with Constantine. His effect still works. And then you also have the ability to discard a nav token instead of changing the speed. I think that's a bonus. More options is good. I think that's a good change to Constantine. If he sees more play, I don't know, but good change. Admiral Ozzel. So Ozzel got a buff to his ability as well. During each friendly ship's determined course step, you may change its speed by 1. you used to have a nav token or dial in order to be able to have his effect. Well, now his effect is just there. I think that's really good. So you have Jerjerrod on the Imperials, who lets you turn for taking a little bit of damage. Ozzel just lets you change your speed, flat out. Change your speed. So you're getting like half a nav dial for every ship activation with Ozzel. I think that's really good. I think Ozzel will see more play. I think. Radis is not new. Admonition is new. 2 changes to admonition. So while defending during the spend defense token step, you may discard a readied defense token to cancel 1 attack die. It didn't have to be readied before. It could be spent. It could be red. Now it has to be green. One thing people would do is like, okay, I'm going to use my redirect in order to redirect some stuff to shields, and then I'm going to cancel a die. Or they'll spend an evade and then get rid of the evade in order to cancel 2. So with the changes to evade, this hurts admonition. But because it hurts admonition, they did reduce the cost of admonition. I still think admonition is okay, but I don't think it's as good. And its points have been reduced to reflect that. Assault concussion missiles, we did see this. It is now an exhaust. You can't do this twice. You can't double arc somebody and get 2 crits off, which could be devastating. Only 1 time. Now you still can get 2 shots, but the second one, if you get a crit on both, you're going to have to just use the native crit effect for the second one. This upgrade card's fleet point value should be 5, so they reduced the cost of the card based on the reduction in effectiveness. Assault proton missiles, the same thing. It's an exhaust. You can't do it twice, and they reduced the price to 4. Avenger changed. I think Avenger is a pretty significant change. I'm not sure Avenger is going to see as much play. Now, Avenger may have seen too much play for a while, but I think, I don't know if this is a little too heavy-handed, or if it's just appropriate. Give us other ideas for lists, and let's take Avenger out of the mix a little bit. So what it says now is, while attacking, you may exhaust this card. If you do, the defender cannot spend more than 1 exhausted defense tokens during this attack. And so it is an exhaust. It was an exhaust before, but before they couldn't spend any exhausted defense tokens. So the big thing was boarding troopers. You exhaust all of their defense tokens, then you shoot at them. They can't use their defense tokens. You put a whole bunch of damage to hull, and with 1 shot is usually pretty devastating. Well, now they can use 1 exhausted defense token. Now you can still accuracy if you have Avenger, and you throw in accuracy, which had been a waste oftentimes with Avenger, because you wouldn't need the accuracies. But now if you have the accuracy, you can spend the accuracy, still lock down the brace, and get a lot of damage through, but they can still use 1 of their defense tokens, which is going to help them out quite a bit. So we'll see. I don't know if people are going to spend the points on Avenger. We'll see. Maybe people will find a good use for it. Captain Brunson got a big nerf. Now, Captain Brunson, she was, or has been, one of my favorite upgrades for Imperials. Really effective upgrade. She got a significant nerf in two ways. I mean, well, not really. So it's just one. She got a points increase to 9. Really bad. I was thinking they had the second line of text there, but that's just because they're inserting the refresh icon. She was exhaust before, but she's significantly more expensive now. 9 for an officer, that's really expensive. You might be able to find better use for those 9 points other places. But we'll see. Commander Sato got a points decrease to 27. Demolisher got a huge nerf. Well, a pretty big nerf. I won't say huge. But it's a nerf without changing its points too, which is interesting. So what it says now is during your attack step, you may perform only one attack. You can perform one of your attacks after you execute your first maneuver during your activation. So you still get 2 attacks, but you can only take one attack before you move. You don't have the option to take both attacks before you move. And then your second attack has to be after you move. So what it used to be is you came in from range, maybe you got a long range shot off, and then you moved into close, speed 3, and maybe you're doing this last activation of the turn. You get a huge shot off on a ship. Turn ends. Now you activate first if you're first player. You activate Demolisher first, and you just take both shots. You've double arced them, take both shots right away, and then you are flying quick and you start getting out of dodge before they can. So you're getting 3 close range attacks in before your opponent can even react. It was probably too strong. I don't think this is a super major nerf, but it's significant. There are ways to get around it. So, you take your first attack, you shoot. Now, okay, I'm going to bump you instead, come back to where I am, and now I'm going to take my second shots because now you've moved and you can take that second shot. Problem is you've not put any space between you and your opponent, and your opponent can now potentially get a good shot off on you. So, it's a nerf, and 10 points. 10 points is a extremely expensive title, but it's the only way you ever saw a Gladiator Star Destroyer. So we'll see. I think it'll still get used, but it's definitely not as devastating as it was. ECM's gonna nerf. ECM's now not only exhaust, but there is a cost of an engineering token to refresh. So one, you're using the card because you're trying to avoid damage. You want to use that brace. I'm going to use my brace. Well, if they're attacking you, you're probably the focus of their attention, which means you're going to want your engineering tokens in order to be able to heal up. Well, now you can't. You're going to have to spend that token in order to refresh ECMs so that you can use your brace again next turn. So you're getting a little bit less ability in order in terms of being able to heal. You're giving up some heal to be able to use those defense tokens. It's a pretty big nerf, I won't lie, but ECMs probably needed it. ECMs was one of those upgrades that if you had ECMs in your if you had a defensive retrofit, if you filled it, you were putting ECMs in it. There wasn't a lot of use for many of the other upgrades. Well, now some of the other upgrades might see some play. External racks got nerfed. It's now more expensive. It's 4 points, which is probably reasonable. External racks was a very popular, cheap ordnance upgrade. General Riken got cost of 34. General Tag got a pretty good boost here, I guess. I mean, he wasn't a commander that you saw very often, but his text now reads: after deploying fleets, place 2 non-consecutive round tokens on this card at the start of the ship phase during each round matching one of those tokens. Each friendly ship may recover one of its discarded defense tokens. So before, I can't remember what rounds they were, but it specified the rounds. And I think one of them might have been round 3, and the other one was maybe round 5, something like that. Well, by round 3, a lot of times fighting is just starting in round 3. You probably haven't used a defense token yet. Now, those evades, I don't know. The evades, maybe you're going to want to... You take tag, and because long range shots are going to be coming in at range at turn 3-ish, you take tag and you just burn your evades to cancel as many dice as possible from a couple of ships, and then you use tag in order to bring those back if you can, properly estimate what turn you're going to be doing this in. That's good. Now, the one thing is a lot of times, so that would be good for a small MSU fleet where you're kind of spread out. A lot of times your opponent is going to pick a ship and try and focus that one ship down. So how many ships are you going to be able to get? You're spending the tokens that much. I don't know. So we'll have to see if tag gets more play. I think he's better now. Whether he's better enough to see play, I don't know. Thrawn we had seen before, so Thrawn didn't really change. They just changed all of the iconography on the card to match the new system. Grand Moff Tarkin, my guy. I love Tarkin. Got a points decrease down to 28 from 38. That's huge. The other thing with Tarkin is I think he's going to see a lot more play with all of the additional use of tokens. Tarkin's ability is going to be important. I love running Tarkin and Sovereign, the title for the ISD, which lets you change tokens. I think that might end up being a really powerful combination in any new meta that comes out of all of these changes. So I'm really excited to try Tarkin after I get some play in with the new fleets. Gunnery Team got a nerf. It is now a concentrate fire. You have to spend a concentrate fire token or dial. That's a huge difference. You just got this before. Now you have to spend the token or a dial in order to be able to use this. So if you're not running concentrate fire consistently, Gunnery Team isn't going to be as good. I know it's not as good for me. I don't run concentrate fire a lot. Now if I'm generating lots of tokens, maybe I can activate Gunnery Team with the concentrate fire, but I don't know. So if you spend a concentrate fire, you have to spend the concentrate fire on your first attack. It has to be your first attack. The next attack you perform, this activation can be performed from the same hull zone. This is also big for the Super Star Destroyer because you can now only attack twice from a hull zone. With Gunnery Team, it had been on a Super Star Destroyer because you get 3 attacks. You could attack 3 times from the same hull zone. Now you can't. You can only attack twice out of that one hull zone, and then your third attack has to be from a different hull zone. And then the rest of the text is the same. You can't target the same ship or squadron with that hull zone that you've already fired with. H9s. So the ability on this one is while attacking, you may change one die face with a hit or crit icon to a face with an accuracy icon. Okay, so nothing has changed with the effect, but it's now a modification. So modifications are big. If you're new to Armada, you can only have one modification per ship. A lot of dice edition type of cards have been modifications. Tractor beams, it was a modification. So big effects got modifications. So that ways you couldn't have multiple big effects on your ship. Well, this now has a modification, which is a pretty significant nerf to the card. Leading shots got a point increase to 6 from 4. So leading shots, very popular ion cannon slot upgrade that let you reroll dice, is now going to be more expensive if you want it. Leia, we knew this one. Points changed down to 28. I think that's good. Leia needed the decrease. Whether it's enough to get her to see more play, we'll have to wait and see. The Mon Mothma title for the Winged Liberty. So it's a concentrate fire effect while attacking a ship. The defender cannot spend more than 1 defense token during this attack. So I believe that the concentrate fire part of that is new. It used to be you would just get the effect. And the cost of Mon Mothma has gone down. Mon Mothma got a change. Now, I had predicted somewhere that I thought Mon Mothma would get a change because with the changes to evade, a lot of her ability went away. It was just covered by native evade. So now, with Mon Mothma, when a friendly ship resolves the evade token effect, it can cancel 1 die at medium range. So it still has the long range you can cancel. You can cancel at medium range or reroll 1 additional die at close range or distance 1. So that's new because before she let you reroll a die at close. Well, that's now native to evade, and now she lets you reroll 2 dice at close. That's good. And her cost is now 27, so I think she got a little bit of a decrease as well. She, over the last, the last year or so, I hadn't, before COVID hit and everything, when we were still playing regularly, I hadn't seen Mon Mothma a lot. Maybe she'll see some more play with the boost to evade, native evade, and points decrease. We'll see. Ordinance Expert's got a huge nerf. While attacking, you may reroll up to 2 black dice. It used to be you could roll all of them. So I would have someone, they'd combo it with external racks, roll 5 black dice, out of an MC 30 or something like that, roll 5 black dice at me. If they didn't get the crit that they wanted, they would just pick up all of them, whether they had hits or not, roll all 5 of them again. You roll 10 black dice, eventually you're going to get a crit. Well, now you can only reroll 2. So if you roll those 5, well, it doesn't matter. If you really blanked out, Ordinance Expert's only helping you a little bit. You can only reroll 2 of them. And you can't just pick them all up to try and get that crit. You're going to have to leave some of those hits down there and just pick up 2 and reroll them. So that's a pretty big nerf to Ordinance Experts. Quad turbo laser cannons got the modification trait. This one was if you roll an accuracy with a red dice, you can add another red die set to an accuracy. It was good, especially if you had rerolls, because then you could add that in, then pick it up and reroll it, or get the accuracy that you wanted too. All right, slicer tools did get a nerf. It is now an exhaust with a engineering token cost to be able to refresh it. Now, in the forums, some people were saying, what was wrong with the slicer tools before? There was nothing wrong with it. It worked just fine. the way it was. And my answer to that was, it may have worked fine with the old ships, because you could only take this on a flotilla. Flotilla, once you start getting in close, which Slicer Tools requires, a flotilla is not going to last all that long. Well, now we have actual ships. Granted, they're small ships, but we have actual ships that can take Slicer Tools now, with the fleet support upgrade. Those ships, in theory, are going to be able to survive a little bit longer. So I think that this may have been a change in reaction to new stuff that was coming, not that it was so bad before. Taskmaster Grin. I don't think Taskmaster Grin actually changed. I think they just updated the card with the iconography. Pretty sure he stayed the same. TRC's just changing the iconography on the card. Plus, there had been a previous errata to the card, and that errata will show up in the upgrade card pack. XI7s, I think we had talked about this one before, but the XI7's got a slight nerf, in that while attacking, if the defender spends the redirect token, it cannot suffer more than 1 damage on each hull zone. So the each is the new part. Each hull zone other than the defending hull zone when it resolves the redirect defense effect. So now if you have an ability that lets you redirect to more than 1 hull zone, XI7 isn't a hard counter to that, because before it used to be you could only redirect 1 to another hull zone. Well, now you can do 1 to each. So while that's not native, there is an upgrade that lets you use a redirect to multiple hull zones, and now you will be able to do that, but you can only take 1 to each of those hull zones. So I think this is a minor nerf to XI7s, but not enough to change. Yeah, I will still play it, especially on large ships. Javaris got a big nerf. This is actually a really significant one. So each squadron you activate may choose to only attack during your activation. So this is the same. You couldn't move. If it does while attacking, it may add 1 die to its attack pool of a color already in its attack pool. Well, before, if you didn't move, you could attack twice. And it could be 2 different things. You could attack 1 squadron, kill it, then attack another squadron, maybe kill that too. Or you could attack the same squadron twice. So you got 2 full attacks. Now you just get to add 1 dice. This is huge in anti-squadron battles. It's a huge nerf to Javaris in that case. Now, Javaris was really strong, so maybe it was appropriate. For bombers doing Javaris, it's not quite as bad. A lot of bombers only have 1 die that they're throwing anyways. Now you get to double that, add a second die, and roll it. The only difference is if you're able to roll crits on both of those dice, you're not able to get 2 crit effects out of it. You can only get 1 crit effect out of it. So even with bombers, it's still a nerf. Huge nerf to Javaris. And then, let's see, it says upgrade card consistency errata. This section presents other errata changes made to upgrade cards so their language is more consistent with other cards. As with previous sections, the mini versions of the card remain legal, yada yada. So I don't think with these that there is a significant change in the card itself, the mechanics of the card. It's just they're trying to create consistency across cards and getting, the text consistency the same. So I don't think that we're gonna, with Link Turbo Laser Towels, while attacking you may reroll 1 red die in your attack pool. It's basically the same. not even sure what the old text was that was different than that. So these ones I don't think really changed. They're just... Now, one thing I'm pretty sure with dual turbo laser turrets, I think they added the modification to it, and they didn't note that over here, which is pretty big because dual turbo laser turrets is, I don't know, maybe because it's a lower cost. Since like turbo laser towers came out, dual turbo laser turrets hardly saw play, unless you just didn't have the extra 2 points in order to be able to get link turbo laser towers in. Link turbo laser towers, even at the extra cost, is considered to be the superior upgrade for the slot. And then they go in. I think that's it. I don't think there are any more errata. So that's it. So there wasn't a huge number of changes, but we did finally see what some of the other cards were officially. Nothing huge. A couple of big ones. Javaris is big. Gunnery Teams is big. ECMs is big. Demolisher is big. But most of the others, while they'll have an effect on the game, it won't have a huge effect on whether people play the card or not. But we'll just have to wait and see. I know Tarkin's decrease will get me playing Tarkin all over again. So get ready for some revised Tarkatans lists, and maybe even some not Tarkatans lists with Tarkin in it. I'm excited to do that. There is at least one fleet builder that is updated with the new stuff. I will get to that in just a minute. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.